There may well be strength in numbers, but some WWE stables have put that theory to the test by failing to make a strong impression. Whether it was because their tenure was brief, they were blighted by bad booking, or their ranks were bloated by boring bastards, these groups barely did anything worth remembering, even if they occasionally counted some genuine legends as members. I'm Sam Driver from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 WWE stables you completely forgot about. Join us! Number 10, the Ruthless Roundtable. William Regal had been in some stables during his time, from the Blue Bloods and the Alliance to the Un-Americans and King Booker's Court, when, in 2009, he was given the opportunity to lead by example. Unfortunately, the stable that Regal was the leader of was the Ruthless Roundtable. Formed on the Go Nowhere ECW brand in the summer of 2009, the Roundtable's whole reason for being seemed to be their pursuit to get the ECW title off Christian and on to Regal. And they failed in their mission, time and time and time again, including an 8-second loss at SummerSlam. Outside of that, they teamed up for some random multi-man tags on ECW on Sci-Fi and Raw, losing them all, before Regal and Big Zeke binned Kozlov off after dissension was teased within the group. The Ruthless Roundtable lasted for about 6 months and didn't do much of anything for anyone involved. Matching up the experienced vet with 2 relatively unpolished bruisers was a good idea in theory, I suppose, but ECW was on the verge of being scrapped back then, and WWE Creative were clearly just killing time before the inevitable. Number 9, Thuggin' and Buggin' Enterprises. Prior to joining WWE as a referee, Teddy Long had a decent run as a manager in WCW, guiding the likes of Doom and the Skyscrapers to success. So it made sense that once he hung up the zebra-striped shirt that he would get back in the managing business. But hold on a minute, player, because it looks like your shiny new stable has Rodney Mack and Christopher Nowinski in it. At one point or another, Long's Thuggin' and Buggin' Enterprises group could claim to have Mack, Nowinski, Mark Henry, D'Lo Brown, Rosie, and Jazz in its ranks. A formidable lineup of talent, sure, but this lot on Raw in 2003 were all treading water to one degree or another. Jazz as women's champion, Mack's white boy challenge, and Henry's brief mid-card singles push were basically all that happened for Teddy's crew over about a 1-year period, as members joined and left, with a few falling by the wayside due to injuries before Long was drafted to SmackDown and found his niche as the Blue Brand's general manager. Number 8, The Cabinet. At the 2004 Great American Bash pay-per-view, John Bradshaw Layfield became one of the least likely WWE champions in history when he beat Eddie Guerrero to win the belt in a bull rope match. JBL had been a mid-card tag guy just a couple of months prior, and though he had the title, it was felt as though he needed something else to get him over as a main event heel, which is where his very own stable, The Cabinet, came in. And since pickings were slim on SmackDown at the time, the champ had to settle for Orlando Jordan, Chief of Staff, the Basham brothers, Secretaries of Defense, and for a short spell, Amy Weber, Image Consultant. As well as Bradshaw's WWE title, The Cabinet added the WWE Tag Team and United States Championships to their haul, though both reigns were utterly forgettable, much like the unit itself. Once JBL dropped the strap to John Cena, The Cabinet fell apart, with Doug and Danny leaving and Jordan drifting away from Layfield. They had been serviceable flunkies, but ultimately lacked charisma, and it was no surprise to see them fade into obscurity after going it alone. Number 7, the Mattitude Followers. Fed up with living in his brother Jeff's shadow, Matt turned on his younger sibling and jumped from Raw to SmackDown in the summer of 2002 in a bid to become a singles star. A delusional heel who was a main event player in his own mind, Matt Hardy version 1 began espousing the virtues of Mattitude, and the philosophy roped in young upstart Shannon Moore, who became Matt's first Mattitude follower, or MFer for short. Moore helped Hardy slim down so he could compete for the Cruiserweight title, and then did what he could to ensure Matt retained it. Before long, the duo had gained another Mattitude follower in the shape of Crash Holly, who, as Shannon's apprentice, was alternatively called a moron. The two little MFers were unable to prevent Rey Mysterio from beating Matt to win the Cruiserweight title after Rey had beaten them both in a handicap match to earn his title shot. Crash was released due to personal issues soon after, while Matt and Shannon continued to team for a little bit longer, until Hardy jumped back to Raw. All told, the stable of Hardy, Holly, and Moore were only together for 2 months. Number 6. The Honor Society. With Kurt Angle's battered body falling apart in late 2002, WWE gave him 2 up-and-coming amateur standouts to do much of the in-ring graft for him. As Team Angle, Kurt, Charlie Haas, and Shelton Benjamin made a lot of sense, and had much more to accomplish when Angle's neck injury forced them to separate after only a few months. When the Olympic hero's body began failing him once again in 2004, WWE went back to the well and surrounded him with 2 wrestlers who could help disguise his limitations. Sadly, those 2 wrestlers weren't quite the same caliber as the world's greatest tag team. Luther Reigns and Mark Jindrak were 2 big, impressive-looking prospects that WWE were desperate to do something with, and probably felt that sticking them with the wrestling machine was going to fast-track their progression. But it didn't quite work out that way, as Jindrak and Reigns never managed to put it all together, and were clearly out of their element when working with top guys. As a stable, the Honor Society, a name nobody remembers as they never pushed it, mostly feuded with The Big Show, which included at least one standout angle where they shot him with a tranquilizer dart and shaved his head. Number 5. The Job Squad. Fed up with forever being on the losing end of things and on their own, just over broke perennial losers Al Snow, Bob Holly, Scorpio, and Dwayne Gill came together in a bid to change their fortunes in late 1998 as the Job Squad. Utilizing the numbers advantage, the band of bums started racking up the W's, with Dwayne Gill beating Christian for the light heavyweight title on the same night that Holly and Scorpio knocked off the New Age Outlaws. After an initial flurry of upsets, however, the Job Squad went straight back to jobbing. Already getting lost in the shuffle, their future as a group was put in jeopardy when Scorpio was released. Gillberg was then phased out of storylines, pretty much signaling the end of the stable. Snow and Holly then subsequently feuded over the Hardcore Championship, their battles over the ramshackle belt becoming way more memorable than anything the Job Squad did during their 3-month tenure together. Pin me, pay me, forget me. Number 4. Team B.A.D. There was a revolution taking place in WWE during the summer of 2015, thanks to the benevolent inventor of women's professional wrestling, Stephanie McMahon. All kidding aside, the so-called women's revolution meant more opportunities for WWE's fighting females, including several call-ups from NXT. One of those was Sasha Banks, who aligned with Naomi and Tamina to form Team B.A.D, which stood for Beautiful and Dangerous. Engaged in a spot of gang warfare with Team Bella, Nikki, Brie, and Alicia Fox, and Team PCB, Paige, Charlotte, and Becky, Team B.A.D basically helped fill up TV time during a storyline that didn't really lead to anything, though the boss did start a winning streak before disappearing from television for about a month. After she returned, Banks proclaimed that she was on her own, thus breaking up Team B.A.D. Tamina and Naomi seemed okay with this initially, but then began feuding with Sasha, leading to a tag team match at Fastlane 2016, which was won by Banks and Becky Lynch. Team B.A.D may have had potential and showed flashes of what they were capable of here and there, but their run was mediocre at best and quickly forgotten about. Number 3. The New Breed. Now, it didn't take too terribly long for fans to realize that Vince McMahon's vision for the rebooted ECW brand was very different than what Paul Heyman's promotion had been in the past. This became clear when McMahon put over Elijah Burke and Marcus Corvon as stars of the new ECW on the January 30th, 2007 episode of the show, with Matt Striker, Kevin Thorne, and Ariel joining them as the New Breed a week later. Feuding with the ECW originals, the New Breed's highest profile match was a loss to Rob Van Dam, Sabu, Tommy Dreamer, and the Sandman in a rushed outing at WrestleMania. Subsequent Extreme Rules rematches were a vast improvement, however, while a storyline about both sides attempting to recruit CM Punk at least added a little bit of intrigue. But in the end, the New Breed were only together for about 4 or so months, and the eclectic collection of wrestlers never really got the time to find their groove. Being on ECW, a brand that the WWE creative team had clearly already lost interest in, ensured that the New Breed would be forgotten about soon after they quietly dissolved as a faction. Number 2. Pretty Mean Sisters. Having split from their men, Goldust and Mark Mero, Terry Runnels and Jacqueline formed an alliance against the males on the WWE roster. The Pretty Mean Sisters, or PMS as a certain head writer was nothing if not an immature misogynist bro, used their feminine ways to manipulate or attempt to manipulate the likes of Val Venus, D'Lo Brown, and Mark Henry. After a few months of these shenanigans, PMS added Love Slave Meat and Ryan Shamrock, who'd been spurned by Venus, the three women using Sean Stasiak for all that he was worth, which, in this instance, was his meat. Them wearing meat out with hours of pre-match hanky-panky as well as a lamentable miscarriage storyline are likely to be the two prevailing memories that anyone has of the Pretty Mean Sisters, if anyone remembers them at all. Runnels hated both the PMS name and the miscarriage angle, while Shamrock was barely in it before she left the company and the Pretty Mean Sisters petered out. Which sure was a damn shame for the dozens of meat maniacs out there. And number 1, The Union. On paper, a stable consisting of Mankind, The Big Show, Ken Shamrock, and Test is pretty bloody badass. The Union, originally called Up Yours, or Union of People You Ought to Respect, son, because Vince Russo loved bad acronyms almost as much as he loved putting objects on top of poles, came together mere days after the Ministry of Darkness and the Corporation merged into the Corporate Ministry. 4 tough dudes who carried 2x4 planks of wood to the ring, the Union showed signs of promise and could have had a great run, but the whole thing ended seemingly as quickly as it began. Their one significant match together as a team came at the ill-fated Over the Edge pay-per-view, where they vanquished the Acolytes, Big Boss Man, and Viscera in an 8-man elimination tag. 8 days later on Raw, Triple H injured Mankind's knee, temporarily writing him out of storylines so that he could go and get surgery. Had the hardcore legend stuck around, there's no telling how far the Union could have gone, even if the Attitude Era's tendency toward ADD booking suggests they probably wouldn't have been together for the long haul.